I asked that question because as I look, I've been taking a lot of heat because I've been pointing the finger at the Democratic Party. I'm like, I ain't got to apologize for a damn thing. I voted for them. What the hell am I doing?
Right.
I voted for them, and I was rooting for them, but I was so disgusted because I felt that they got caught up in identity politics, cancer culture, and all of that stuff, and wasn't talking about everything. Talk about that for a second.
So, I mean, what did Donald Trump do that was really smart and he just drove home, right? He told every white guy, not just white guys, guys who worked in big companies, that DEI was the reason why you weren't getting the job or why you weren't getting promoted. And he told people of color that, or not just people of color, people who were in lower paying jobs, the reason why you weren't getting paid more is because immigrants were coming here illegally and taking your jobs. And he wasn't wrong to a certain extent. The Democrats were so, about identity politics and, we have to help all these underprivileged people. Well, we all want to help people who are disadvantaged, whether they're trans, whether they're black, whether they're white, whether they're poor, whoever. We want to help those people, but you don't have to make it you do what you do rather than just talk about it, right? Mm-hmm. And by just pushing all these agendas to push DEI, and I'm a fan of DEI, I think it really turned off a lot of people who felt like they were being diminished. And then there were, particularly in universities, the way they implemented DEI and spend tens of millions of dollars, instead of just helping people that need help. Okay, Stephen, you need help. Let me find a way to help you. That's what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. It was, let's put together these programs. Let's spend all this money. Let's tell people that they are racist when they're not racist.
Right.
There are plenty of racists. We don't need to call people who aren't racist.
Right.
And so, doing things like that, the whole trans sports issue, it's like the old Willie Horton thing. My attitude is if there's a trans athlete, no matter what side, you let the opponent, whether it's an individual sport or a team sport, you let them decide if they wanted to compete against them or not. If they feel they can win, if they feel it's not fair, it's up to them. But to make it just a national issue so that if you weren't supporting the fewer than 10 trans athletes in the NCAA, then you weren't a good person. People aren't ready for that yet. And you've got to meet people where they are. We've taken this country so far in race relationships, relations, and attitudes towards LGBTQ. Mm-hmm. It takes time. You can't just force it down people's throat. And instead of trying to get it where the people who are being disadvantaged and being discriminated against are helped, they wanted to make it a campaign issue. Focus on helping the people, not using them to campaign.
How does it make any sense to you? Let's say, for example, let's compartmentalize and take the trans athlete issue. We're talking about folks that make up less than 1% of the population, and they made it a big deal during their campaign. What kind of thinking do you connect that to for the Democratic Party to take that kind of approach where there were vast swaths of the American electorate that they were ignoring in favor of a considerably smaller swath? How do you explain it?
Yeah, I mean, I get wanting to stand up for people who are being discriminated against.
Absolutely.
I get wanting to stand up for people who are in pain, who can't get jobs because of how they look or how they sound or where they're from or what's happened to them, the choices they've made, and how they're identified. Help them. But you've got to look at the goal. How do you help them is the goal, not how do you make the point to, the rest of America that they're discriminatory and we're not. There's no value in trying to prove someone else discriminates and you don't, right? The value comes in focusing that energy on actually helping the people, not trying to use them to sell something.
Last question on this subject. I want to see if you agree or disagree with me on this. I'm looking at the Democratic Party, and I think there's a lot of spectacular local talent. I like Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania. I really, really like Wes Moore. I look at them and I say, yes, I like them. The way they're looking at politics, they might as well stay in their own state. I don't see a national voice for the Democratic Party. So I'm of the mindset that as bad as this situation seems to be with tariffs and how it may potentially wreck our economy if you're listening to a lot of centrists and those on the left, my other attitude is the best way to combat all of that is for the Dems to win the midterm elections. And the best way for them to do that is by letting Donald Trump do what he wants to do so he can mess up. And that way you can slide up in there and recover from the disastrous stuff that happened this past election. To that you say what?
So I think the Democrats locally have to do things, right? You're going to get Bernie, you're going to get AOC going out and going on their tour and get people amped up, and that's fine, right? But the reality is, let's just look at Doge, right? The cuts that Doge is making to jobs, firing all those people, closing offices, canceling contracts to universities through the NIH, through other organizations, other agencies.
Right.
That has a disproportional impact on small town America. So I read something that in Iowa City, Iowa, that just through the NIH there were $79 million in grants that look like they'll be canceled. That's very impactful in that district. And apparently the woman who won, the Republican who won, only won by 800 votes. You've got to go where you can help those people who are being disadvantaged by all these Doge cuts. You go to Parkersburg, West Virginia, where there's a Treasury office that has 2,000 people. I don't know how many people are going to get fired, but first 125 already have. When you fire 125 people in a town that only has 29,000 total, probably 15,000 working, and there's potential for another 1,875 to be cut and offices to be closed, the Democrats need to be going there and talking to the mayors, talking to the tax assessors, talking to the people in the county and saying, look, this is all going to fall on you. Everything's going to roll downhill and hit your budget, and you're going to have to cut all these services. Let us work with you to come up with solutions so that you see the Democrats as the solution rather than the Republicans that are creating this problem. But if you just say Democrats bad, Trump bad, every time you bring up Donald Trump in a small town, it's a trigger word one way or the other. There's just no point to talk about him. What you got to do is go in there and help the people that need help. And that's the theme you'll hear me talking about all the time, no matter what the topic. When these decisions like tariffs and Doge are made, there are people who are being disadvantaged. There are people who are losing their jobs, their livelihoods, their companies, their towns are not going to be able to offer the same services. The COVID money that is that's now being used for a mental health clinic or an opioid clinic. Those are going to get cut. Who is going to come in there and help them resolve those issues that those cuts have created? That's what the Democrats need to do. They need to go in there and talk to those people, hold the town halls, listen to them. And rather than always having a Democrat standing behind a lectern lecturing, let those people who are facing these challenges talk for them. Because if you hear somebody from Parkersburg, West Virginia, if you hear a cattle farmer from Nebraska, if you hear somebody at the University of Iowa who's studying the cure for cancer, whatever it may be, if you hear somebody in West Virginia that used to work for the agency that made sure that there was safety in the coal mines, and you talk to the coal miners who now are scared to go and do their job, put aside whether the environment, they're just terrified, that there's not going to be safety standards. Talk to those people and let them do the talking for you. That is how you're going to get momentum if you're the Democrats.
Mark, you launched Cost Plus Drugs in January 2022 to cut the middleman out of getting prescription drugs into the hands of consumers, and that's helped millions. How will the new tariffs affect that business?
Right now, they're not, but what we'll do is if there's a 10%, 20% tariff, we'll add that on to the cost. So right now, the way Cost Plus Drugs works, you go to costplusdrugs.com, you put in the name of the medication. If we carry it, and we carry about 2,500 SKUs, it'll come up and we'll show you our actual cost. And then we'll show you our markup, which is only 15%. And because we only mark it up 15%, we're almost always cheaper. If there's a tariff, we'll show you what the actual tariff is. We'll be completely transparent and we'll show you what it is. And hopefully, since it's some percentage of a lower amount, will actually end up being even cheaper than the alternatives.
Are you going to run for president?
No.
You don't think so? Do you believe that you could beat any Democratic candidate out there?
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you run when you have the heart, the intelligence to make a difference, and obviously deep pockets?
Because I think I can really change healthcare and fix healthcare, and I'd rather be on that mission. And when I'm 95 years old and I'm on my deathbed and I'm thinking about life, I'd rather think about those minutes I spent with my kids and the time I was able to spend with them at this age, rather than running around on a campaign trail or even being in the White House.
What's your chances of fixing health care if this man is still in office?
I think, he actually helps to a certain extent.
Okay, how?
Because I think the people he's putting in there, they need help, right? They know what they don't know, fortunately. And so the people that I've talked to have said, look, the door is wide open to come in and help us figure these things out, to show it, to demonstrate to us why the pharmacy benefit managers are problems and why they're increasing the cost of medications, while the biggest insurance companies are increasing the cost of healthcare. We're ready to listen. The people that he's appointed have said, or through their intermediaries have said, we're ready to listen. We think you can help. I'm sending them data. So I think there's a path there.
And who are these people that he appointed that you're alluding to? RFK Jr., who him? Anybody else?
I haven't talked to those guys, but I've talked to people who work for him.